With the events in Ultra Space now concluded, life in Alola has largely returned to normal. All of the damage across the islands has been rebuilt by this point. Nanu and the police force in Ula Ula dealt with Team Skull and the Aether Foundation members. All are locked up, unable to cause any more trouble, something which has given Celine great joy. The only exception is Lucamine, who was still hospitalized to deal with the prolonged poisoning from Nihilego. Lily and Gladion have been checking on her regularly and are happy to hear that she has been improving. Thankfully, Mount Lanakila was entirely spared from the Ultra Beast rampage, meaning no damage came upon the newly built League Conference Stadium. As such, the League is scheduled to continue without issue. Kukui is eagerly counting the days down. As of right now, there are only a couple of weeks left until his Dream League is set to begin. He can't wait to see how Alola's very first Pokémon League conference will turn out. The Island Challengers are just as excited, and none more so than Ash and Hao, who have been training for the League for the past month. The two actually decided that they'd split up for a bit and train on their own, and then reunite for the League. Hao decided to retread Alola and battle against more totem Pokemon to ensure that his Pokemon are at their peak of strength. On the other hand, Ash decided that he'd return to Akala Island and face as many opponents as he could in the Battle Royale. He heads to the Battle Royale Dome every morning and battles as many trainers as he can until the sun goes down. Day after day after day. In the beginning, things were going well, and Ash and his Pokemon were truly being tested for this upcoming challenge. But at this point, Ash has actually been on a major winning streak for days now. Viewers have actually started to get bored, and honestly, Ash feels the same. He just doesn't think these trainers are much of a challenge anymore, and this worries him. He needs to be at his absolute strongest before the League. But as of right now, no one has truly pushed him in a while. Sure, some of his Pokemon have learned some new moves here and there, but Ash knows that the Island Challengers competing in the League will be a much stronger force to deal with. If only there were some tougher opponents around here. Ash mulls over this during a walk back to the Pokemon Center, after a long day of winning more battles. He's disappointed that none of the regulars at the Battle Royale have given him the kind of challenge he needs before the League. While thinking to himself, he accidentally bumps into someone. As he looks up to apologize, he's surprised when he sees the man in front of him. "Oh, Professor Kukui." The man smiles and happily greets Ash, asking where he's going so late. Ash explains that he's been at the Battle Royale Dome all day. He's been spending the past few weeks training for the Manalo Conference. Kukui praises the boy, asking if he thinks he's ready for the tournament. But Ash sighs and says that he isn't sure. His Pokemon have been doing great in their training, but he worries that he's been pushed as far as he can with just the opponents participating in the Battle Royales. He knows that the League will be full of strong Island Challengers, and he wants to be sure he can handle the strongest of Alola's trainers. The professor gives Ash a pat on the back, saying that he still has time before the League to face some more strong opponents. He should just keep doing what he's doing, and all will turn out well. Ash gives a small smile before waving the professor off, hopeful that the man's words will indeed come to fruition. The next morning, Ash treks to the Battle Royale Dome at a slower pace than usual. Honestly, he doesn't even feel like going. He's sure he'll just sweep everyone there just like he has the past few days. Man, he wishes he could face a truly strong opponent. Ash is about halfway to his location when Pikachu suddenly chirps. As he looks over to where Pikachu had directed his attention, his eyes land on a nearby beach. He sees two familiar-looking figures at a distance. He walks closer and closer until he realizes in shock who it is. Masked Royal? The muscular man in his Incineroar turned to wave to Ash, excitedly saying that he's surprised to see him back on Akala Island. He asks what he's doing there, and should he be getting ready for the League? Ash says that he's actually been on this island for a while now, and he's been training for the League by battling at the Battle Royale Dome. But recently, he hasn't really felt challenged by those battles. He was actually talking about it yesterday to Professor Kukui. This is when Royal says, "What a coincidence. It just so happens that the professor is actually a really good friend of his." But aside from that, Royal is actually interested in Ash's dilemma. If he recalls correctly, they only had a brief one-on-one battle in the past. Maybe now would be a good time to see if he's improved since then. Ash is in shock for a moment, but he's thrilled by this offer. Finally, a really tough opponent. He says he'd love a quick battle before he heads to the Battle Royale Dome. Who said this battle would be quick? Royal begins. I want to see how all of your Pokemon have grown. Let's have a full battle. Wait, really? You just said you're training for the league. All of your Pokemon will need to be in top shape. Besides, last time I only faced Torracat. I want a chance of battling your entire team before the tournament. And I'd say that would be the best training for you and your team as well. What do you say? Ash does not need to be asked twice, so he agrees right away, rushing to the opposite end of the beach. He couldn't believe his luck to come across one of Alola's strongest trainers right when he felt he'd reached his battling peak before the League Conference. Mass Royal meets Ash with the same enthusiasm and says he is not going to hold back. So Ash better give this everything he has. Ash and Pikachu nod, with Ash saying that's just how he likes his battles. And so, the battle begins. Incineroar is already out on the Mass Royal side, and he decides he'll be starting the battle with him. So he tells Ash to bring out his first choice. There's no hesitation on Ash's side. He knows exactly who he wants to send out against this Pokemon. He tosses a Pokeball, and Torracat enters. The Tigers glare at each other, with Torracat having a particular ferocity to his growls. He remembers the last time he battled this Pokemon. He lost pretty easily, but he's gotten stronger since then. Now is his time to achieve victory. The two Pokemon begin sparring with each other, and things seem pretty even. Royal even comments that he can tell that Torracat has gotten stronger since their last battle. The smaller cat rushes forward with a Fire Fang, latching onto Incineroar's arm. But this doesn't faze the larger feline in the slightest. He spins around with a Darkest Lariat, flinging Torracat into the air. Then he immediately follows up with a Cross Chop, which slams Torracat into the ground. Torracat wobbles back to his feet and tries to launch a Fire Blast for big damage. Royal is impressed seeing the move, but this is nothing Incineroar can't counter. And he rushes through the massive Fire Blast with a spin, to then strike Torracat with a blazing Darkest Lariat. Things aren't looking good, so Ash recalls Torracat for Lycanroc. Royal tells Ash not to foolishly think a type advantage will scare him, and he orders his Pokemon to use Throat Chop. Lycanroc, on the other hand, uses Stone Edge, but much to Ash's shock, Incineroar simply chops the massive stone to pieces. But this action does slow Incineroar down, which at least allows Lycanroc the chance to rush in with a quick Accelerock. The move lands a big hit on Incineroar, but the bulky behemoth is able to stand tough and hit hard Cross Chop. The move lands a critical hit, with the force causing Lycanroc to form a small crater in the ground. Ash calls out to the wolf, and to his surprise, she manages to slowly pull herself up from the ground. She's hurt, but not out yet. Royal changes pace and calls for Darkest Lariat. Incineroar effortlessly lands the attack with impressive speed. But this is precisely what Ash wanted, and he has Lycanroc use Counter. The move deals a major hit to Incineroar, impressing Mass Royal. Still, while the tiger has taken a lot of damage, he's nowhere near close to being out of this fight. Ash is impressed by this Pokemon's power, and has Lycanroc use her newest move that she learned across weeks of training, Last Resort. The Pokemon leaps into the air and fires a massive star shape at Incineroar. But Royal is done playing games. He orders Incineroar to use Blast Burn. The Pokemon sends forth a massive burst of fire directly into the Last Resort, sending the force of both moves right back at Lycanroc. And while neither would be too effective on their own, The combined power is too much for the already weakened Lycanroc. The massive blast strikes Lycanroc, torching her into unconsciousness. This gives the Masked Royal the first win of the match. The pressure is on now. This is the first battle in ages where Ash has felt backed into a corner so early in the fight. But in a way, this pleases him, because that also makes this the first real challenge he's faced in a while, and this is exactly what he wanted as preparation for the league. Ash recalls Lycanroc with a smile. He tells the Masked Royal that Incineroar is strong, but he knows he'll be able to win this, and he sends out Meteor. The small meteor zips around her side of the battlefield happily, oblivious to the power of the creature in front of her. That said, this is when Royal decides to recall Incineroar, mainly due to him needing to recharge after a blast burn, but also to give him some rest for later in the battle. Ash isn't fazed. Besides, he's been curious about what other Pokemon the man possesses anyway. The Masked Royal sends out his Venusaur next. The massive creature roars loudly and stomps the ground as he enters the battle. Ash is impressed by how strong the Pokemon looks, but he doesn't underestimate the situation despite Meteor's type advantage. After all, his other rock type just fell to a fire type. He expects all of Royal's Pokemon will give him a challenge, so he starts by having Meteor use Power Gem. She fires off the attack quickly, shooting blue beams of light at Venusaur, but the bulky behemoth is unbothered and strikes back with a Sludge Bomb. While the attack doesn't deal too much damage, it does break off a bit of Meteor's shell. Ash commands Acrobatics next. The attack is executed to deal a lot of damage, but Royal has the perfect counter. Venusaur uses his Giga Drain, healing off a lot of the damage he took. Ash wants to try the attack again, but Venusaur grabs Meteor with Vine Whip, preventing her from moving. This allows the perfect opportunity for Venusaur to use Solar Beam. Venusaur is free to charge up the move as Meteor can't escape. Ash then panics and orders Meteor to use the same attack. The small meteor charges Solar Beam as well, and both powerful attacks are launched at the same time. The collision causes a huge explosion, pushing both Pokemon back. Meteor unfortunately takes the brunt of the damage due to her typing, while Venusaur is mostly unharmed. But this also had the effect of tearing apart Meteor's shell, activating her Shields Down ability. Ash knows this is his best chance and orders a more powerful Acrobatics. Meteor flies around and uses the boosted attack, knocking Venusaur back hard. Royal orders Giga Drain to help Venusaur recover, but Meteor dodges and is now too fast for Venusaur to hit. As such, a speedy follow-up Power Gem finishes the Dinosaur Frog and gives the next win to Ash. The Masked Royal is impressed and compliments Meteor on her defensive endurance and attack strength. He decides to use a hard hitter next, sending out his Feraligatr. The alligator snarls aggressively at Meteor, and she squeals back in a failed attempt to seem intimidating. Ash knows it's risky, but he decides to keep Meteor in the battle and orders her to use Shell Smash to max out her power. She does so, becoming unbelievably speedy. Ash orders Power Gem, and Royal orders Ice Punch. Meteor's attack is launched, but Feraligatr is able to punch the Power Gems into puny particles. Ash commands Acrobatics next, but the Masked Royal smirks and says he's got the perfect counter. Meteor's attack lands a decent hit thanks to her power boost, but the bulky Feraligatr is able to hang on. With Meteor up close though, Royal orders Surf. Ash panics as Meteor has nowhere to dodge. He tells her to fly away, but it's no use. The point-blank Surf is used, slamming into Meteor and covering the battlefield in a tidal wave. The mini meteor is blasted back onto the sandy ground, unconscious. Ash recalls Meteor, thanking her for the great battling. He then asks Pikachu if he's ready to go. The small mouse nods and rushes in, cheeks sparking in eagerness. Feraligatr snarls back, showing he isn't threatened by the electric type. Pikachu starts with a strong Iron Tail, but Feraligatr intercepts with Ice Punch. Pikachu is easily knocked back, but fires off a Thunderbolt. Masked Royal has his Pokemon counter with Hydro Pump. The moves collide, and the Pokemon seem very much even, despite Pikachu's type advantage. But Hydro Pump winds up overpowering Thunderbolt and slamming into Pikachu, much to Ash's surprise. It's clear as day that Royal's Pokemon are trained to face any type of opponent, so Ash needs to be smart here. He decides to call for Electro Web. This doesn't faze Royal, and a perfectly executed Surf blocks the electric net. But this was all a distraction. Surf may have stopped the Electro Web, but Pikachu bursts through the massive wave with Quick Attack. This surprises Royal, and Feraligatr on its own, but a now close-range Thunderbolt deals an even greater shock. Royal asks the alligator if he's okay, and he responds with a nod, though electricity racks his body. Ash orders another Iron Tail, and this time Pikachu is able to land the move, slamming his steel-coated tail into Feraligatr's head. Ash tries to finish things off with Electro Web, but the Masked Royal pulls out his last-ditch move for big damage, a Hyper Beam. The Hyper Beam shreds through the Electro Web and lands a direct hit onto Pikachu, blasting him backward. Pikachu is hit hard, but he has enough strength to get back up. And with Feraligatr needing to recharge, Pikachu unleashes a massive Thunderbolt. This is enough to drop Feraligatr, evening the match once more. Masked Royal praises Ash on his Pikachu's power, saying that not many Pokemon are able to withstand both a Hydro Pump and Hyper Beam from his Feraligatr. Ash says that his Pikachu is the strongest of his kind, so Royal will need to bring it on. Gladly, the man says. His next choice for the match is a Lucario. Ash knows how strong Lucario can be, so he tells Pikachu to be careful, and the mouse nods. Pikachu starts with Quick Attack, but Lucario counters with an equally fast Extreme Speed. The Pokemon collide and manage to push each other back. Pikachu uses Electro Web. However, Lucario is fast enough to dodge and strike with a hard close combat. Pikachu is pummeled with a flurry of punches and falls onto the ground. Ash calls for him to get up, and he does, but he's clearly in a lot of pain. He tries a massive Thunderbolt, but Lucario counters with Dragon Pulse. Both Pokemon fight to overpower the other, but unfortunately for Ash, Pikachu is just too worn out from the prior match. Dragon Pulse pushes through Thunderbolt, and the powerful hit renders Pikachu unable to battle. Ash runs up to collect his best friend, telling him he did well. He sets him down for a rest and compliments Lucario on his power. He wants to make this a fighting-type battle, and sends out Hakamo next. Royal says that he heard how this Pokemon was able to defeat the Totem Komoro of Pony Island, so he's eager to face it in battle himself. Hakamo roars boastfully, happy to hear that her feats are being shared throughout the region. Ash wants to get the upper hand right away, and has Hakamo start with Dragon Dance. Hakamo powers up, but this gives Lucario the chance to hit a rapid Extreme Speed. Hakamo is flung backward, but she is able to regain her footing quickly. She then rushes forward to attack with Dual Chop. Lucario, meanwhile, counters with Meteor Mash. The Pokemon deal powerful punches to each other with passion. Both seem to be even, so Royal calls for a close-ranged Dragon Pulse. Ash tells Hakamo to dodge. Thanks to Dragon Dance increasing her speed, she is able to put some distance between herself and Lucario, but the Dragon Pulse still slightly grazes her back. Thankfully, she isn't too hurt by this, but she knows she can't be too complacent. She rushes forward with a Dual Chop, but Lucario dodges with Extreme Speed. He zips around the battlefield, and Hakamo can't keep up, as the Jackal appears to be teleporting. Lucario stops directly behind Hakamo. Ash tells her to dodge, but her reaction time is far too slow. Lucario hits a Meteor Mash, dealing a massive punch to Hakamo's face. It seemed like this was a direct hit. However, thanks to Dragon Dance making her slightly more agile, Hakamo was able to use the scale on her head as a protective helmet to block a lot of the damage. This shocks Lucario and Royal, but they're even further caught off guard once a follow-up close-range Brick Break deals a huge hit to Lucario. Hakamo celebrates this successful attack, but it's only momentary, as Lucario is able to launch yet another Dragon Pulse during her minor distraction, dealing even more damage. Things are getting tough. Ash tries to take control and orders Hakamo to use Dragon Breath, but Royal calls for another Dragon Pulse. The two moves collide, causing a small explosion, but as Hakamo is unable to see due to the smoke, Lucario uses its aura to locate the small dragon. The masked Royal orders a close combat, and Lucario deals a pummeling to Hakamo, knocking her to the ground. Ash calls out to her in concern. Thankfully, the Pokemon rises, but she's on wobbly feet. Masked Royal thinks it's time to end things and calls for extreme speed. Ash commands yet another Dragon Dance. Lucario rushes in, ready to deal a major hit. But at the last second, Ash has Hakamo roll out of the way of the attack. Thanks to Dragon Dance, she's able to just somersault away. Then she snakes behind Lucario and lands a massive Brick Break. After having its defenses lowered from close combat and Hakamo's massive power increase, thanks to Dragon Dance, this hit is enough to put the Jackal out of the battle. Royal admits that he's truly surprised by the results of that matchup. He was certain Lucario would be able to win that one, but it looks like Ash's Pokemon are stronger than he thought. Ash smiles, until Royal says that he still doesn't think that it'll be enough by a long shot, and he sends out his Braviary. Ash asks Hakamo if she'd like to take a rest, but the rowdy dragon refuses. She's on a roll and is ready for more. As such, the battle continues. Braviary begins with a rock slide, but Hakamo is more than fast enough to dodge the massive rocks hurtling toward her. It was largely a diversion though, as Braviary swoops in and grabs Hakamo. Ash is confused with what Royal's plan is, but it's soon revealed as the man commands Sky Drop. Ash tells Hakamo to break free, but the only attack she can use is Dragon Breath. She uses the move multiple times, but can't properly turn around or aim while crushed in Braviary's talons. Ash is panicking since Hakamo is helpless to the incoming move. He tells Hakamo to use Dragon Breath again, but it's of no use. The dragon is starting to become frustrated, and draconic energy begins to ignite within Hakamo's spirit. Braviary slams the Pokemon onto the ground, dealing heavy damage. Ash and Royal are certain that was a finishing hit. But to their shock, Hakamo rises to her feet, her body now glowing a bright purple. Everyone is confused until Hakamo, in her desperate attempt to hit her opponent, fires a massive purple beam into the sky. Said beam soon bursts, causing multiple projectiles to fall onto the battlefield. Draco Meteor is all Royal says, as the new attack rains down everywhere. Ash is impressed and praises Hakamo for her new move. Braviary is pelted by the numerous meteors and is hit hard, taking massive damage. However, Royal sees a way to turn things in his favor and commands Braviary to use Superpower to knock the attack back at Hakamo. So with a swift smack of his talon, Braviary sends a Draco Meteor heading straight toward Hakamo. Ash is certain she's still speedy enough to dodge, so he tells her to avoid the redirected attack. Despite her exhaustion, she manages to dodge easily though. But she makes this dodge without paying attention to her surroundings in the midst of the meteor shower. She sadly dodges right into the path of another meteor, which crashes down on her in an instant. Masked Royal grins while Ash grasps in shock. As the attack ends and smoke disperses from the battlefield, Hakamo is shown to be unconscious. Ash recalls the small dragon, praising her for her earlier victory and the new move. He plans to work on that later, so they can get better control before the league. Royal praises the Pokemon too, saying Hakamo definitely forced herself to learn a new move to allow her to attack airborne Pokemon easier. The fighting spirit of Ash's Pokemon team matches his to a T. Ash agrees with this statement and emphasizes it by sending out a Pokemon that best shows this characteristic, Tiny. Royal is surprised to see Ash's second fighting type enter the battle, not expecting him to directly give himself a disadvantage. But Ash says this is their league training, so they need to be prepared for all situations. Tiny likewise flexes his muscles, showing that he has no fears in facing the bird Pokemon. The masked Royal likes this gutsiness and says he'll gladly give them a challenge if they want. He then orders Braviary to use Brave Bird. The Pokemon dives down, aiming for the massive hit. But Ash quite simply tells Tiny to wait. As the bird gets close, Royal wonders what Ash could be planning. Right as Braviary prepares to land his attack, Ash has Tiny grab the Pokemon. Using pure brute strength, Tiny takes hold of Braviary. Then Ash orders him to use Fling. The Passimian does a quick spin, then tosses the bird onto the ground. Royal is impressed by the Pokemon's strength, but he decides to take control and orders a Sky Drop. Braviary flies back into the air and dives toward Tiny, but this is what Ash hoped for, and he orders Smackdown. Tiny hurls his berry with the precision of a sports player, dealing a clean hit to Braviary's wing. The bird hurtles back to the ground, stunning the masked Royal. He asks his Pokemon if he's okay, and while he's still standing, the damage to his wing keeps him grounded. This is Ash's chance. It's now or never. He has Tiny rush over and use Low Sweep. Royal quickly calls for Braviary to fight back with Superpower. The Pokemon clash, dealing punches and kicks to each other with intense power. However, Braviary is off balance due to his injured wing. Not only that, but the repeated use of Superpower causes his attack and defensive strength to weaken. A perfectly aimed Low Sweep then does damage to his leg, causing him to topple over. Royal is well aware of how his Pokemon is being overpowered. Braviary's mobility is nearly gone, but he refuses to back down and commands his last resort, Rock Slide. The Eagle uses the attack and rocks rain down on the battlefield. But still, Ash sees a way out. He tells Tiny to grab one of the rocks and toss it right back with Fling. The Passimian uses his impressive strength to do just as he's ordered. The massive rock is hurled at Braviary, and the bird can do nothing but stand there as the boulder smashes onto his face. The Pokemon is knocked out, having been completely outplayed by the sporty Simian. The masked Royal now sees why Ash used his Passimian in the battle. He was truly the perfect counter to Braviary despite his type. Clearly, this Pokemon is a very tough opponent. As such, Royal decides he needs to pull out all the stops. He sends out his penultimate Pokemon, a Manectric. Ash decides to start out strong and calls for a Low Sweep. But now it's Royal's turn to take control. Tiny lunges forward with a powerful kick, but Manectric latches onto it with Thunder Fang. The Passimian is zapped and falls flat on the ground. Royal doesn't want to let up for a single second and calls for Wild Charge. Ash orders Tiny to get up and grab Manectric. Manectric charges up her attack and lunges forward, but Tiny has just enough time to brace for impact and grabs the small wolf. Though he takes a lot of damage from the move, he's able to recover and use Fling. Leaping into the air, Tiny does a quick rotation before slamming Manectric into the sand. Manectric slowly makes her way back to her feet, shaking herself off and growling at Tiny. Just as I expected, Royal says. We need to go all out. Manectric, time to Mega Evolve. Ash barely has time to register the words as Royal flips his Z-Ring around, showing a Keystone. The Keystone syncs up with a Megastone, which Ash now notices on a collar around Manectric's neck. In an instant, the Pokemon Mega Evolves into a much more powerful form. Now Ash is nervous. This entire time in Alola, he'd never seen anyone utilize Mega Evolution. Royal is truly one of the top trainers in this region. He knows how strong Mega Manectric is from experience, so he tells Tiny not to let his guard down. Tiny nods and is excited to see the much more powerful opponent. Royal orders Discharge, and Manectric unleashes a massive burst of electric energy. Tiny is vigorously shocked and flung backward. Electricity sparks across the ape's body. Ash asks if he's okay, and while Tiny struggles to his feet, he is able to stand. Ash knows that he needs to match the Mega Pokemon's power, so he pulls out his Phytinium Z Crystal and places it on his Z-Ring, preparing for a Z move. But much to the boy's shock, Tiny growls and shakes his head in disagreement. The Passimian wants to win this battle with his own power. No Z moves involved. Ash smiles, knowing that this is just how Tiny likes to battle. He decides to respect Tiny's wishes, and instead orders him to use Low Sweep. Royal is surprised by the Passimian's refusal to accept the Z power, even being up against a Mega Evolution. but this just makes him more fired up to face this Pokemon. So he tells Manectric to meet it with a Thunder Fang. The wolf rushes forward and aims to latch onto her opponent, but Tiny uses his athletic ability to leap above Manectric, then strike her with Low Sweep from behind. Manectric stumbles slightly, but then she turns and let loose a flamethrower at Master Royal's command. Ash tells Tiny to intercept the move with Smackdown. Tiny flings his berry to block the fiery blast just quickly enough that he can avoid the move. But Royal orders an immediate follow-up Discharge, which gives Tiny a huge zap. He gets back up, but is clearly on his last legs. Royal decides to finish things and calls for Wild Charge. Ash tells Tiny to counter the hit with Close Combat. Manectric rushes forward, but she stumbles while on course. Her leg is injured from the previous Low Sweep. This gives Tiny just the opening he needs to unleash a devastating Close Combat. Royal commands his Pokemon to use her full power and push through. Both Pokemon work their hardest to push the other back, and eventually a massive burst of electricity booms across the battlefield. Ash and Royal call out to their Pokemon, only to see that both are down. It's a draw, meaning everything will be down to their final Pokemon. The Master Royal admits that he's surprised Tiny was able to overpower his Mega Manectric without even needing a Z move. Ash has clearly trained him well. Ash recalls Tiny in agreement, thanking the Passimian for a great job in taking down 2 powerful Pokemon. Now it's time to bring everything home. Royal and Ash bring Incineroar and Torracat back onto the battle, the same way they started this match. The Tigers snarl at each other once more, each wanting to take the win home for their trainer. Royal commands Cross Chop, and Torracat meets it with Revenge. The Pokemon clash, with Incineroar taking slightly more damage from the super effective move. Royal commands Throat Chop, but Ash orders Fire Blast. Royal sees no issue with this, and orders his Pokemon to just slice through the move. Incineroar does so, but when he does, Torracat is gone. Turns out the Fire Blast was a distraction, allowing Torracat to sneak behind the larger feline and use Revenge once more. Incineroar is starting to look tired, so Royal decides that it's all or nothing. The man says he's impressed by Torracat's willpower, but it's time to end things. He pulls out his Z-Ring and asks if Incineroar is ready to finish this battle. Having had just enough time to recharge, the Tiger agrees. The Masked Royal pulls out a Z-Crystal, telling Ash to watch closely. This move they're about to use is unique to Incineroar specifically. Ash tells Torracat to be careful, as Royal commands Malicious Moonsault. Incineroar leaps into the air as a fiery aura coats his body, and he dives toward the exhausted Torracat. Ash orders his Pokemon to dodge, but Incineroar slams the target at a rapid speed, and Torracat is flung backward to Ash's feet, following a cloud of dust. The Masked Royal praises Ash, saying his Pokemon did well, but sadly it looks like they just need a bit more training to beat Incineroar. Ash prepares to admit defeat, but to both trainers' shock, Torracat slowly and steadily gets back to his feet. He then slowly makes his way back to the battlefield. Ash is impressed and tells Torracat to hang on just a bit longer. The Pokemon nods, but he's struggling to maintain his footing. Royal sighs, saying he likes Torracat's drive, but this battle is over. He tells Incineroar to use Blast Burn. At once, the massive burst of fire is launched at Torracat, with more power than Ash has ever seen before. The small tire and much of the beach is engulfed in flames. Once the fire dies down, Incineroar takes a knee, needing to recharge after that move. Though it doesn't matter, he looks to see Torracat lying flat on the battlefield. Royal nods, saying, "It's over." Ash looks up at Royal, looking disappointed. Only for a moment, as he soon breaks into a smile, saying, "Is it?" Royal is stunned, looking at the Pokemon on the ground, only for it to poof away into thin air. "No, it can't be," Royal begins. But he has no time to react, as Ash pulls out his Z-Ring, telling Torracat that now is the time. Torracat appears from a nearby pile of sand and rushes to Ash's side. Trainer and Pokemon strike a pose together, and Ash commands all-out pummeling. Torracat lunges forward with his paws coated in a fiery aura as he rushes toward Incineroar. Royal tells his Pokemon to get out of there, but Incineroar has exhausted himself after the use of Blast Burn and can do nothing as he's beaten with a barrage of powerful punches. The Tiger is blasted backward, nearly slamming into his trainer, who only just manages to avoid being hit by his partner. He looks back, calling out to his strongest Pokemon, but he is met with the face of a clearly unconscious cat, who is unable to battle. Now it's truly over. Ash has won. Ash gleefully rushes over to Torracat, who nearly collapses in his arms. Ash tells him that he battled amazingly and he deserves a good rest. Torracat sighs with a quiet meow, happy to see that he was able to beat Incineroar. Ash recalls the Pokemon before running over to the Masked Royal, who has also called his Pokemon back to his Pokeball to recover. Royal, is Incineroar okay? Ash asks. However, Royal ignores the question. So, Substitute was your secret weapon the whole time? The man asks with a smile. Ash nods, saying they'd been working on the move during their training for the league. Royal praises the boy, saying Ash truly took everything he said to him back on Ula Ula to heart. Torracat's moveset is incredibly diverse now. Ash nods, saying he and all of his Pokemon have been working to perfect their moves for a while now. That wasn't even the first time in the battle, was it? Torracat used it to dodge a malicious moonsault as well, didn't he? Ash nods, impressed at how sharp-eyed the man was. Yeah, but only just barely. Had we been just a second slower, we might have lost right there. The Masked Royal can do nothing but grin, as he holds out his hand for a fist bump. Well, that's it, kid. You're ready for the Manalo Conference. A week later, Ash and Hao stand among numerous island challengers as the league is set to begin. Both boys are excited, each with the goal of taking home the victory. They even see Elio standing afar off and give him a friendly nod, happy to see their companion as well. They wish each other luck as the opening ceremony begins. In the stands, Celine, Lily, and Gladion watch on. Celine and Lily are excited yet conflicted. After all, there can only be one winner. Do they think Ash and Hao have what it takes to make it to the finals? And if so, who will win? The best trainer will win, Gladion says simply. Celine rolls her eyes at him, annoyed at him giving such a lame answer. Gladion simply huffs that it's not his fault. It's hers. If she had entered, he'd simply be rooting for her. Wait, what? The Pokémon League opens with a ceremony presented by the Island Kahunas. Together, they light a flame, which burns brightly across the stadium. Once completed, the quartet announced the beginning of the Manalo Conference. Cheers are heard for miles, as the excitement is palpable. Then, the man behind the event, Professor Kukui, stands in front of what must be close to 100 trainers. He announces how this league will progress. The man states that much research has gone into how other regions conduct their league conferences. So much so, that he will be utilizing the information he took from other leagues and will be implementing many of their customs here. Ash is intrigued by this, especially as someone who has traveled numerous regions and competed in several leagues. He wonders what elements will be carrying over into this league. First, Kukui announces there will be preliminary battles to determine who makes it to the official league tournament. And what better way to execute these battles than through a traditional Alolan battle royale? 4 trainers, but only 1 Pokemon each. The last trainer standing will move to the main competition. Hearing this has Lily a bit nervous. She thinks back to the battle royale tournament they entered and knows how easy it can be to become overpowered. Gladion mumbles that Celine would sure know about that. She eyes the boy in annoyance, but puts her focus back on the speaker. Round 1 is where the competition truly begins. Everyone will participate in 3-on-3 battles with no substitutions. Whoever gets 2 wins is the winner. Round 2 will be implementing the double battles of the Evergrande Conference in Hoenn. Not to mention our own Kahuna Olivia's grand trial. Each trainer will battle with 2 Pokemon at once. Whoever loses both of their Pokemon is out. In round 3, I think it's only fitting to match the Pokemon to the round number. Once the trainers are matched up, a coin flip will determine if you will battle in the triple battle or rotation battle format. Naturally, the winner will be the one who can knock out all of their opponent's Pokemon. Hao was a bit nervous hearing this. His triple battle against Island Kahuna Nanu didn't go so well, and he hoped he was done with them. And rotation battles? He's never even heard of those. But he can't back down now. There's no turning back. He needs to use everything he's learned over his entire journey to win, no matter what challenges come his way. Finally, in rounds 4, 5, and 6, we will be going all out. It'll be full battles for the remainder of the competition, so make sure all of your Pokemon are in top condition. Kukui ends this announcement by wishing all of the island challengers luck. He looks forward to seeing who will be the first champion of Alola. The preliminaries begin immediately following the professor's speech, and they get off to an intense start. Everyone is eager to see who will make it to the qualifying rounds. Hao's Battle Royale thankfully takes place early in the day. To make things as fair as possible, Kukui says everyone must send out their Pokemon at the same time. No choosing based on what their opponent sends out. As such, everyone tosses their Pokeballs in unison. Hao decides to go with the reliable Pokemon from his grandfather, so he brings Crabominable onto the battlefield. At the same time, his opponents send out an Alolan Golem, a Gyarados, and a Gumshoos. The large crab glares at all of his opponents, ready for the match. Hao is fully aware that there are no second chances. He and Crabominable need to be the last one standing, or their league run will be over before it begins. Alolan, Gyarados, and Golem focus on each other, as both have moves which are super effective against the other. This leaves Gumshoos to deal with Crabominable. Hao may have the type advantage, but Gumshoos has powerful super effective attacks like Fire Punch. The first eliminations of the battle occur when a collision of Thunderbolt and Hydro Pump from Golem and Gyarados quickly knock both Pokemon out. It's just down to Crabominable versus Gumshoos. But even though Zen Headbutt deals a hard hit, thankfully, Crabominable's Dynamic Punch and Crab Hammer are enough to take the Detective Rodent down. Hao thus moves into the qualifying rounds. Lily, Celine, and Gladion are happy for this victory. Now they just need Ash to win his battle, which they have no doubt he'll be able to do. Later that day, Ash's preliminary round takes place. He wants to open the league conference with his first Pokemon, so he sends Pikachu to the field. His opponents wind up using Beheeyem, Pau Oricorio, and Carbink. Oricorio uses Hurricane to hit everyone on the field, but Carbink uses Sandstorm to blend in with the surroundings and constantly deal damage to the others. Ash has Pikachu use Electro Web, but Beheeyem takes control with Psychic and sends it right back. Thankfully, Pikachu dodges it, causing the Oricorio who is behind him to get hit, dealing a lot of damage. The small bird responds with Revelation Dance. Pikachu is knocked back, so Beheeyem doubles up on the damage with Psybeam. Ash is concerned, but Carbink's trainer surprises everyone by aiming a sneaky Power Gem at Oricorio, taking it down. 3 trainers remain, and Beheeyem's trainer has his Pokemon use Rain Dance to get rid of the annoying Sandstorm. Carbink can't hide as easily now, so Ash wastes no time and has Pikachu strike with Iron Tail. The massively powerful attack ends Carbink in a single hit. It's down to Beheeyem and Pikachu, so Beheeyem's trainer tries to end things with a Z move. Shattered Psyche is used, but Ash has Pikachu use Electro Web as a protective net to bounce around the battlefield instead of taking damage from the psychic walls. Pikachu builds enough momentum that a quick attack does big enough damage to send Beheeyem into the stadium wall. A follow-up Thunderbolt finishes him, giving Ash the victory. Ash and Hao have both made it to the qualifying rounds and are thrilled. Celine, Lily, and Gladion are happy that both of their friends will be moving into the main competition. That said, things will just get even tougher moving forward. The next day, Kukui announces the beginning of the qualifying rounds. From the announcement the previous day, they already know this first round format. It'll be 3-on-3 with no substitutions, with the mission to get 2 wins. However, to make things interesting, Kukui has one little surprise he hadn't mentioned yet. For this round, the battles will take place on different battlefield terrain. Many of the Alola native island challengers are confused by this, but Ash explains to Hao that this is common in other leagues. The Indigo, Evergrande, and Lumio's conferences are some of the prime examples. Kukui explains that this will force the island challengers to adapt to their surroundings, so he's eager for today's matches. The Kahunas will be the referees for all the matches moving forward, exciting the audience and the Kahunas themselves. They are eager to see how all of the island challengers will fare now that the tournament is truly beginning. This time, Ash is up first, and he'll be having his round 1 battle on a rocky battlefield. Hapu will be judging this battle, and she tells both trainers to send out their Pokemon. Ash decides to start with Tiny, figuring the sporty simian will be able to easily adapt to the terrain. His opponent goes with a Flareon. The battle is pretty even, though Flareon starts to get the upper hand after a lava plume heats up the battlefield. The rocky terrain becomes a molten lava pit, and merely standing on it now hurts Tiny so much that he becomes burned. Hao, Celine, Lily, and Gladion are surprised to see such a strategy. Meanwhile, Hapu praises the trainer for using the environment to her advantage. Tiny uses a powerful smackdown attack, but Flareon counters with a powerful Flare Blitz that deals a huge hit. Tiny lands a last-ditch close combat, but the burn weakens his attack strength. As such, Flareon can power up with Sunny Day, then finish the Passimian with another Lava Plume, meaning Ash has lost the first match. Ash needs to be careful, since one more loss means the end for him, Lily says from the audience. Hapu calls for both trainers to send out their next Pokemon. Minior is Ash's choice for the second battle. Meanwhile, the next Pokemon on the opposing side is Espeon. Since Minior can fly, the molten rocky terrain doesn't affect her. Meanwhile, according to Ash's opponent, Espeon's magic bounce ability keeps burns away. I know that's not exactly how it works, but just roll with it. I'm trying to be creative here. Ash starts out by commanding a strong Power Gem, but Espeon powers up with Calm Mind, reducing damage from Minior's attack. With his power boost, Espeon also deals powerful hits with Psybeam. A command for Zen Headbutt looks threatening, but Minior quickly dodges by flying upward, causing Espeon to slam its head onto one of the rocks on the battlefield, injuring the gem which grants its psychic powers. Seeing this impresses Hao. Now he sees how trainers can make use of the different battlefield environments. Not wasting a moment, Ash has Minior use Shell Smash, giving her a huge power increase of her own. Espeon rushes forward with Iron Tail, but Minior is quick enough to dodge and fire a Solar Beam, which hits quickly thanks to the sunlight still beaming on the battlefield. After that, a speedy acrobatics from Minior ends the battle in Ash's favor this time. The final matchup will determine everything. Hapu calls for the third choices for each Ash and his opponent, and it's decided that Torracat will be facing Sylveon. The Pokemon go at it with fierce determination, with neither's side giving an inch. The sunlight helps Ash's Torracat for a bit, but eventually it fades away. Sylveon uses this opening to grab Torracat with its feelers and hit a strong Hyper Voice. Ash sees Torracat struggling, so he calls for Substitute. But to his shock, Hyper Voice hits despite the move's usage. In the crowd, Gladion comments that Hyper Voice can actually hit through substitute decoys. This has Lily and Celine confused, though Hao is sure Ash will think of something. Sylveon fires off a Moonblast at one of the rocks on the battlefield. The resulting explosion pelts Torracat with rocks, dealing lots of damage. This is where the opposing trainer tries to deal a big hit with a Z move, Twinkle Tackle. The Pokemon rushes in, though Ash has a plan. Sylveon lands the hit, but since Torracat resists it, he is able to grab Sylveon's feelers with Fire Fang, not only dealing a lot of damage, but he then flings it into a rock pillar. Sylveon is disoriented, so Ash can take the chance to command his own Z move. Sylveon tries to get up, but flinches as a result of the Fire Fang. As such, Inferno Overdrive engulfs the pink rabbit creature. Once the fire dies down, there are no questions about the result. Ash is the winner and will be moving on to round 2. Lily and Celine are relieved that Ash made it through. Gladion finds himself in awe at how both trainers used the terrain of the battlefield during the match. He hopes Hal will be able to do the same. More battles go by throughout the day, and Ilya winds up battling on a safari battlefield. He manages to easily win his first 2 battles, not even needing a third, impressing all of the Kahunas and Kukui. Hal also takes note of all the different battlefield terrains, thinking of how to approach battling on each of them as the league progresses. And on that note, Hal's round 1 match is up next, and it's determined that it will be taking place on a battlefield resembling a massive forest. Huge trees stand over a terrain of grass. Still, Hal doesn't think he'll have too many issues, and sends out Komala to begin. His opponent sends out Kabutops. Hala will be the referee here, and he's quite eager to see his grandson's performance, considering how long it's been since he's seen him battle. Hal can't help but be a bit nervous. After all, he does not want to lose in front of his grandfather in the first round of the league. He decides to keep his full focus on the battle, and that he'll put into practice everything he's learned. With that, Hala allows the battle to begin. Kabutops starts out strong, using its speed and power to overwhelm Komala with Aqua Jet. Komala retaliates with some Shadow Claw and Slam attacks, though Kabutops is relatively unfazed. Thinking back to Ash's battle, Hal plans to use the battlefield to his advantage, so he has Komala climb the trees to avoid attacks using branches as obstacles. But Kabutops can easily slash away the tree branches with X-Scissor. At first, this looks like trouble for Hal, but he gets an idea and baits Kabutops into getting close to use Liquidation. As soon as the fossil beast gets in close, Komala avoids the attack at the last second, causing Kabutops' claw to get stuck in the tree. This allows Komala to land a powerful wood hammer to the stationary creature, dealing huge damage. This did also free Kabutops from the tree, and it lunges forward with Aqua Jet again, while Komala uses another wood hammer. The Pokemon collide, and both fall in defeat. The entire crowd is stunned, wondering what this means. After all, nothing was ever said about what would happen in the case of a tie. Hala, however, knows what will happen next, and feels a sense of nervousness for his grandson. His face becomes stern as Kukui gets to the mic, and quickly announces that he and the Kahunas already planned for a situation such as this. As the rule stated, a trainer must get 2 official wins to move forward in the competition, so this tie will not count toward a win or a loss on either side. At this point, one trainer must win the next 2 matchups to continue, otherwise, both trainers will be eliminated. Ash is stunned hearing this. He'd never even heard of this type of stipulation in previous league tournaments. Then again, with this being Alola's first Pokémon League conference, and with Kukui taking so much inspiration from other leagues across the world, perhaps he wanted to implement some special elements to make it unique among other leagues. This now has Lily and Gladion much more concerned for Hal, since even if he wins the next battle, he will still be eliminated if he loses the second. Celine, however, stands up and starts cheering for Hal, saying she has faith that he can pull through. Ash agrees and cheers with Pikachu. Hal feels energized hearing his friend's call of support, and Hala is comforted to see this as well. Next on the field for Hal is Vaporeon, while his opponent uses Bisharp. Bisharp starts with a powerful Night Slash, and Vaporeon counters with Aqua Tail. The Pokemon go at it, dealing powerful hits to each other. That said, Bisharp seems to have the upper hand and lands several strong attacks. The Steel type lunges forward with Iron Head, But how has Vaporeon used Scald? Bisharp pushes through the powerful blast of water and lands the hit. But thankfully, Vaporeon reduced the full force of the attack. This puts things better in How's favor, and he has a better grasp on Bisharp's attack pattern. Vaporeon is able to better counter Night Slash with her Aqua Tail now. The Dark type rushes in to use Foul Play, but Vaporeon dodges with Dig at the last second. Bisharp's Head Blade winds up getting stuck in one of the trees on the battlefield, similarly to what happened to Kabutops in the first matchup. Bisharp manages to pull its head from the tree, but by that point, Vaporeon resurfaces and ends the battle with a powerful Dig. Thankfully, this pushes things closer to a win for How, but Ash and the others know that he still must win the next battle or he'll be eliminated. This next match will determine his fate in the league. And at this rate, the other competitor is furious. No matter what happens from here on out, they aren't making it any further. In a rage, they furiously yell that if their league run ends here, How's will as well. This outburst stuns How, and Hala angrily scolds the other trainer, stating that such a mindset is not fitting for a challenger of Alola's first league. How tells his grandfather it's fine though. He knows he'll win this next battle, and make it to the finals even. Hala nods, trusting How's resolve, so both trainers send out their last Pokemon at the same time. On How's side, it's Crystal, while his opponent goes with Armaldo. Gladion advises How to be careful, since Armaldo has a type advantage as a partial rock type. Immediately, Armaldo launches a Rock Blast, but Crystal bats the attack away with her bone, hitting the rocks right back at Armaldo. The opposing trainer then calls for Ancient Power. How changes tactics and has Crystal avoid the attack by hiding behind some of the trees on the battlefield. But the opposing trainer has had it with these trees and commands Armaldo to hack them in half with Fury Cutter. Armaldo slashes all of the trees into pieces, leaving only a grassy field with logs scattered everywhere. Not only that, but repeated use of the move has increased its strength, meaning Crystal actually takes a hard hit from the powered-up Bug-type attack. She is able to land a Shadow Bone with the now close proximity, though Armaldo strikes back with a successful Rock Blast, knocking Crystal back and causing her to drop her bone. How's opponent sees an opening now that Crystal has lost her main weapon and is ready to end things. Ash and the others panic, especially once the other trainer's Z-Ring begins to glow. The trainer calls for a Hydro Vortex. The Water-type Z-move is launched, and a massive tornado of water is launched at the Fire-type. How only has one choice at this point in time, and he calls upon the power of his own Z-Ring. He commands Corkscrew Crash, and tells Crystal to dive straight toward the massive whirlpool, stunning the crowd. How orders Crystal to use the Hydro Vortex to her advantage, and to drill through the water to gain speed and momentum. The Marowak does exactly as commanded, and indeed, she manages to speed up, using the spinning waves to assist her. It's now or never. How commands Crystal to attack. The Alolan Marowak then bursts from the whirlpool, her Corkscrew Crash attack now surrounded by a water coating similar to a steely Aqua Jet. The opposing trainer panics, calling for Ancient Power to slow Crystal down. But alas, it's of no use. Crystal slams into Armaldo with so much force that it crashes into the stadium wall. Hala calls the match. It's a victory in How's favor. How rushes over to hug Crystal, thrilled by their victory. The opposing trainer is devastated, but simply recalls their Pokemon and exits the battlefield without a word. Hala decides that he'll have a word with them later, but for now, he is pleased that How will be moving forward in the competition. His friends celebrate as well, and all excitedly look forward to the next round battles. Round 2 arrives the following day, and all of the challengers are pumped up and ready for another invigorating day of competition. Once again, Kukui announces that today's battles will all be double battles. Trainers will have to use 2 Pokemon and battle as a team to achieve victory. Everyone will be battling on the basic battlefield for this round, so skill will mean everything here. Hao's battle comes first today, and Olivia will be the referee. She requests that both trainers select their Pokemon and send them out to the field at her command. The island challengers nod, each pulling out 2 Pokeballs and sending them out in unison. It's Raichu and Caraminable on Hao's side, and they'll be facing Primeape and Whimsicott. There are type advantages and disadvantages on both sides, mainly regarding the fighting types. Gladion says, "Let's see what Hao's plan is." Olivia is excited for this matchup, especially being able to see the now evolved Crabominable battle. It was already strong when it faced her Pokemon as a Craballer, so she's eager to see what new tricks it's learned. The battle is one of wits. Hao initially tries to focus on Primeape, but Whimsicott winds up being a major distraction. Not only does she use Tailwind to become airborne and face Raichu in an aerial battle, but the move also increases her and Primeape's speed. This allows Primeape to pummel Crabominable with a hard series of cross chops in quick succession. An Ice Punch from the Yeti Crab deals a big hit, but Primeape can shake off the pain and rush right back in with Low Kick. Hao has Raichu use her psychic powers to grab Crabominable and move him out of the way of the attack. This does work, but it also allows Whimsicott to charge up and launch a Solar Beam during the distraction. Hao's Pokemon quickly find themselves backed into a corner, but just as his opponent plans another series of attacks, the Tailwind peters out. With the Pokemon no longer as agile, Hao decides it's Z-move time, and he actually surprises everyone by pulling out an Icium Z and commanding Sub-Zero Slammer from Crabominable. Ash is surprised, wondering where Hao got this Z Crystal. But this is where Lily reveals that Hao actually collected all of the Z Crystals he'd been missing during his solo training before the league. This impresses Ash, as it means Hao will have access to a wider range of Z moves than himself. He becomes even more thrilled by the thought of battling him. Crabominable launches a huge beam of ice from one of his big, meaty claws. Whimsicott is still quick enough to dodge, but that means nothing when Raichu uses Discharge to fill up the battlefield with electricity. Crabominable can thankfully avoid the attack thanks to the Z-move raising him out of the path of the other Pokemon. But in an effort to avoid the discharge, Whimsicott flies directly in front of Crabominable. So with his other arm, he launches a second blast of Sub-Zero Slammer, ending Whimsicott's run in the battle. In a rage, Primeape retaliates with Retaliate. Hao is unfamiliar with this move, though his opponent explains that it's an attack that is extremely powerful if used after an ally faints in battle. Naturally, that means the move lands a huge amount of damage, and Crabominable is taken out of the battle just as quickly as he landed the previous finishing blow. Olivia announces that it's down to these final 2. Primeape's trainer tries for a last-ditch attack and commands the Z-move Black Hole Eclipse from the Pokemon. Celine becomes concerned at the risk of the super effective hit. The black hole begins pulling Raichu into the vortex, and it's looking like things might be over for her. But Hao commands her to use Electric Terrain. This activates her Surge Surfer ability, allowing her the speed she needs to fly out of the path of the attack. A now powered-up Discharge not only lands a huge hit on Primeape, but it's enough to disperse the Black Hole Eclipse. The opposing trainer and the audience alike are stunned, seeing this level of power. But that's not all, as a final Psyshock finishes off Primeape and gives the win to Hao. Olivia congratulates the boy on his victory, stating that he's gotten so much better as a trainer. Hao thanks the Kahunas and Raichu for her diligence in the battle. Ash's battle takes place immediately following Hao's, and Nanu is the referee. As Ash sends out Lycanroc and Hakamo'o, his opponent goes with Sharpedo and Gabite. Having seen Hakamo'o battling as a tiny little Jangmo during Ash's trial, Nanu is looking forward to seeing what she can do now. Sharpedo starts off strong, slamming an Aqua Jet into Lycanroc, but she responds with a speedy counter, dealing major damage in return. Meanwhile, the Dragon types begin brawling, with Hakamo'o's Dual Chop clashing with Gabite's Dragon Claw. Eventually, Hakamo'o gains the upper hand, but it's only for a moment, as Gabite traps both Lycanroc and Hakamo into a sand tomb. Nanu remembers using this same strategy against Ash's Pokemon back during the trial, using his own crocodile. He recalls how much the little Jangmo struggled back then. Sharpedo fires off a Hydro Pump, dousing both Pokemon as they sink further into the ground. Ash's Pokemon are becoming overwhelmed, but he soon thinks of an idea. As it turns out, the excess water from the Hydro Pump began turning some of the sand from the sand tomb into a mud puddle. While not ideal, the mud was easier for his Pokemon to move around in, so Ash commands Hakamo to use Dragon Dance. Hakamo does so, and she is able to free her feet enough to escape from the sand tomb. With more attack power and speed, she grabs Lycanroc and leaps onto a safe spot on the battlefield. Things get serious now, and Lycanroc uses a powerful Stone Edge to deal a lot of damage to Gabite. Hakamo also rushes over and strikes Sharpedo with Brick Break. She lands a big hit, though Rough Skin has her cringing in pain. The Pokemon clash again. Accelerock slams into Aqua Jet, and Dual Chop collides with Dragon Claw once more. The Pokemon on each side are starting to become visibly tired, and Nanu, despite his disinterested appearance, is curious to see who will take control. Well, it seems like both trainers get the idea to use their Z moves now, with both actually choosing the same attack, Devastating Drake from their dragons. Gabite fires her attack first, with the Draconic energy flying directly at Lycanroc and Hakamo. However, Ash tells Lycanroc to grab Hakamo, then launch themselves upward with a Stone Edge. Lycanroc does as she's told, and this allows the Pokemon to evade Gabite's attack. In the air, at Ash's command, Lycanroc uses Last Resort, and Hakamo fires her Devastating Drake onto Lycanroc's attack to power it up. The Dragon Energy-coated star falls onto the battlefield like a comet, striking Sharpedo and Gabite, and defeating both. Nanu announces Ash's victory, leading to a wave of cheers from the audience. Ash is overjoyed and moving one step closer to the finals. Celine, Lily, Hau, and Gladion are thrilled by the results as well. Ilya wins his double battle, following Ash's match as well. At the end of the day, Kukui announces that only 16 island challengers remain in the competition. Things are heating up now, so everyone better be ready to bring everything to the table for the remaining rounds. The events of the following day go by smoothly. Round 3 is fittingly formatted to feature triple and rotation battles. The battle type is set to be randomized for each matchup. While Ash and Hau both had some triple battle experience, rotation battles were another story for Hau. Luckily, Hau was able to watch a few of the earlier matches to get a gist of how rotation battles tend to function in case he winds up being randomized for one. Ash's rotation battle thankfully goes well. His lineup of Pikachu, Minior, and Hakamo turns out to be a great one. The three Pokemon cover each other's weaknesses well, allowing for some smooth switch-ins when necessary. Ash earns the victory without any real issues. Following Ash, Ilya takes to the field in a triple battle. He struggles a bit as a result of his opponent's crafty battling tactics, but in the end, he's victorious. As Hau eventually heads to the battlefield, indeed, it'll be a rotation battle for him, but he thinks he's ready for it. Crystal, Crabominable, and Decidueye will be facing Kangaskhan, Florges, and a Cantonian Marowak. Crystal is up front at first, and she and Kangaskhan get into an intense brawl. But the Kangaroo swaps places with Marowak, and while the battle appears even at first, Crystal is soon overwhelmed by her regional counterpart. She takes a huge hit from Bone Club and is knocked to the ground. Marowak rushes forward with Knockoff, intending on knocking Crystal's bone away. But at the last second, Hau has Crabominable take the lead position in Crystal's place. Marowak winds up hitting the crab monster for minimal damage, then gets struck by a point-blank Ice Punch, ending its run in the battle. The opposing trainer doesn't relent, and with Hau's fighting type up front, Florges comes to the front and fires off a flurry of Moonblast attacks. Crabominable doesn't want to back out yet, and uses a series of Ice Punch attacks, but Florges is able to dodge each swing. Eventually, Kangaskhan moves in and hits a hard Dizzy Punch. Crabominable becomes slightly annoyed, and after winding up an Ice Punch, He slams his fully ice-coated pincer into Kangaskhan. In the stadium, Hala recognizes the move as Ice Hammer. Hao is happy seeing the new attack, but he can only celebrate for a second as a focus punch from Kangaskhan takes the Pokemon down. Decidueye takes the lead as Hao recalls the crab. The bird flies in with Sky Attack, but Florges rushes back to the front lines and intercepts with a Dazzling Gleam that pushes Hao's partner back. Next, he tries Spirit Shackle, but Kangaskhan moves back to the front at her trainer's command. She is unharmed by the ghost type attack, and as such, she lands a powerful hit with Shadow Claw. Hao's opponent is clearly skilled at rotation battles. Celine hopes the boy will be able to pull through, though his lack of experience has her worried. Hao needs to focus, so he orders Crystal to the front once more, and she attacks with Flare Blitz, a new move she learned during Hao's league preparation training. Kangaskhan strikes back with a super effective Shadow Claw. The two collide, each having done major damage. Hao tries to end things with Iron Head, but a surprise Sucker Punch puts the Alolan Marowak on the verge of fainting. Hao commands one more big hit with Flare Blitz, and Kangaskhan goes in with Shadow Claw. The resultant collision leads to a double knockout, leaving only Decidueye and Florges on the battlefield. But this actually relaxes Hao. No more switching to deal with. Now it's just about pure strength and skill. Florges uses Moonblast, but Decidueye slices the attack with Grass Pledge. Dazzling Gleam is used in an attempt to obscure Decidueye's vision, but this time, Hao has him cover his eyes with his Leaf Hood, then use Spirit Shackle. The plan works, as Decidueye is able to send out a flurry of arrows, with one striking Florges, locking her in place. This leaves her helpless, as a Steel Wing from Decidueye finally defeats her, ending the battle in Hao's favor. With Ash and Hao now having made it through the first 3 rounds of the league, Celine, Lily, and Gladion breathe a sigh of relief. That said, things will only get more challenging from here on out. And that is made extremely clear when Kukui closes out the day with an announcement. Congratulations to everyone who has made it this far in the Manalo Conference. You've shown great battle skills and proven your worth as island challengers. I see our island kahunas have truly recognized Alola's best. But we're now at the halfway point. From this point forward, I expect everyone to go all out. Starting from now until the end of the league, you'll be participating in full battles.